Hello, everyone. Welcome to the undergraduate webinar series, an interactive online platform connecting high school students to the Ashoka community. I am Priya Vasumatari. I'm an assistant manager at the outreach office of Ashoka University. I was an Ashoka student from 2018 to 2021. At Ashoka, I did my bachelor's in political science with a minor in history. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar Student Life at Ashoka University. A very special webinar. With us, we have some of our students to share their experiences and journey at Ashoka University so far. Without further delay, I would like to welcome our panel of speakers we have with us, Kashvi Jajodia, Karthik Tiwari, Nitya Nair, and Aryan Yadav. The students will now introduce themselves, post which we will carry on with the discussion about their lives at Ashoka. Feel free to post any questions you may have in the Q&A box. We will be taking them up towards the end of the session. Let's begin with our first panelist, Kashvi.
Hey everyone, good evening. I'm Kashvi Jajodia. I'm from the graduating class of 2022. I have been pursuing an interdisciplinary major in economics and finance, and I'm currently heading Abhinaya, the dance society at Ashoka.
Karthik.
Hello everyone, I'm Karthik. I'm a physics major and a philosophy minor. And I work in the hydrodynamics lab at Ashoka. I was formerly the head of the physics society, and I've also been a part of the philosophy society.
Thank you. Nitya.
Hi everyone, along with Karthik and Kashvi, I'm from the graduating batch. I'm a third year in economics and finance, and I'm an RA for this year and part of the Res Life team. And I was the director of the debating union for my first 2 years, and I'm now part of the investments club and the business club.
And finally, Aryan.
Hello everyone, my name is Aryan. Like these guys, I'm a second year. I'm completing my second year now, batch of 2023. I'm a CS major and a math minor. Currently working with the Computer Science Society and in the college football team. So yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Without further ado, let's get started. So clubs and societies are a student-run initiative at Ashoka. Kashvi, can you please tell us how clubs and societies function on campus and what all clubs and societies can one be a part of?
Right. Thank you so much for the question. So essentially, clubs and societies at Ashoka provide an integral medium for the student body to immerse themselves in their wider hobbies and interests. And clubs and societies provide an ocean of opportunities, essentially, to contribute, engage, and enrich their campus experience, both culturally and intellectually. At Ashoka specifically, clubs and societies are all student-run initiatives, wherein they design their own leadership structure and mode of operations. And each club and society has the freedom to define their vision statement and take on strategies to implement them in a very inclusive manner. So we at Ashoka not only base an individual's recruitment into a club or society based on an individual's proficiency, but also their passion to learn and grow in their respective fields. And now to answer your second question. So essentially, individuals can become a part of wide-ranging clubs and societies, such as music, dance, theater, gaming, community engagement, creative writing, photography, and much more. And students may choose from amongst the array of existing clubs and societies functioning on campus already, and they can also initiate their own.
That's a lovely answer, Kashvi. So when students hear clubs or societies, their first interaction or first reaction is of dance, music, or theater. However, academic societies exist for a very different purpose and are therefore almost every discipline on campus. Karthik, can you please tell us how academic societies are actually different from cultural clubs and societies on campus?
Yeah, so in a lot of regards, they're the same in the sense that students have their own administrative structures, students can propose ideas. So I was a part of the physics society, I still am. We used to have these student-run events such as telescope sessions, a series of student talks. We would go to Delhi. We would do field trips and all of these things. The difference between an academic society and a club would be that every academic society is um, associated with a particular faculty advisor. Um, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Am I coming through clearly?
Yes, Karthik, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, yeah. So every academic society has an academic faculty advisor. So in some ways, they're the extensions of the department. So, for example, we'd have the physics department, and then we'd have one representative from the physics department who makes sure that if, in case students in the academic society require any help, for example, if we want to invite people, if we want to invite speakers, we can reach out to the department. They can help in their capacity as well. So we have the independence of functioning like a club, as well as the logistical support from the department. In that regards, it's academic societies are slightly different.
All right. So if I get you right, you have the best of both worlds. Lovely. So studying at Ashoka means entering a residential program where you live on campus. So residence life becomes an important part of your daily life. It's your home away from home, basically. Nitya here is a residence assistant. So Nitya, as a resident assistant, what are your responsibilities and how can an RA help a student when they move into campus? And if you could also highlight the sort of training you get in order to become an RA.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I think residence life at Ashoka and in college also is really interesting because it's the first time we have an academic space and a living space in such close quarters and within the same radius. So at Ashoka, you have anywhere from 30 to 65 people on a floor. And an RA, usually you have either one or two RAs allocated for each floor. And the primary role of the RA is to function as the first point of contact between the student body in the residential space and the rest of the admin or the residence life team, which includes the wardens.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Nitya. Could you be a little louder? Maybe
Yeah,
hold the
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So not at all. So yeah. So the RA's function is to basically be the first point of contact between the student body and the rest of the residence life team, which includes the wardens and the dean of residence life. So whether there is an incident that residents want to report or a query, maybe advice, sometimes just creating a community as well. All of these fall into the purview of what an RA aims to do with the floor that they're allocated, as well as the rest of the student body in general. So that's one thing. Secondly, ensuring harmonious co-living. So when you have so many students in a shared living space for the first time, mediating conflicts and making sure that everyone has a safe space that they feel comfortable coming back to after a day of classes is also important. So, so that's a part of the reason why RAs hold daily office hours for any student to come and approach them and put forward any questions or queries that they'd like to talk about. As far as moving in goes, I think this is especially relevant for first year RAs because RAs are given floors with by batch. So some RAs will be, my batch is the fourth year batch. So they don't have as much of a transition when they move onto campus, but with first years especially, but also all students, I think the most important role of the RA is to allow the floor to become the first sort of community that new students can fall back onto, because oftentimes the floors that they get allotted are the first times you're going to be seeing other students and interacting with them and meeting them in the hallways and corridors. So creating a community out of the floor that you're in is really helpful. And I think the RAs really try and help facilitate that through events and things like that. As far as training goes, the RA program does have a pretty intensive training program. So you apply the year prior, and in the summer there's a interview process and a filtration system. And at the end, there's a team of RAs that are shortlisted. And then you go through 2 weeks of intensive training. So starting in the morning and ending at the night for a couple of weeks. wherein we're trained to talk, we're trained by professionals from the Center of Wellbeing here, as well as the Residence Life team in handling issues with mental health and handling roommate conflict. We do case studies as well as some training in paperwork and administrative things like filing incident reports and things like that. So after that 2 weeks in the summer, we do a refresher course in the winter Christmas break to make sure that everyone is on the same page and we haven't sort of forgotten normal protocol. So we're trained in the traditional escalation matrix if there's any issues that do arise on the co-living space. So I think we get a pretty rigorous training, and the Residence Life team is really helpful in making sure that everybody is on the same loop and has a shared understanding of how to handle things that arise.
All right, thank you for that, Nitya. Now, the RA-ship sounds like a pretty intense program, as it should be if you're going to be responsible for 65 odd individuals on a floor. So after a long day of classes and assignments, students need recreational time, and some students resort to sports. But sports is not all fun and games at Ashoka, no pun intended. In fact, they are an integral part of our ecosystem. So Aryan, can you help us understand what sort of sports are there for Ashokans to play? How many teams does Ashoka have, and in which all sports at the moment?
Hi, yeah, thank you for the question. So right now in Ashoka, compared to your schools, we have almost all kinds of sports. So the big sports, the most common sports would be football, basketball, cricket, and volleyball. We have all, but there's also the uncommon sports that me personally, I have experienced at Ashoka are like shooting. We have shooting, which is great, and then we have this new sport, ultimate frisbee, which I don't feel is like that common in India. But and then we have a lot more sports. So compared to like schools, we have a lot more sports over here. And so as you said, yeah, after like a long day of classes and assignments, people do need like recreation stuff. So sports is a way to do that. And especially at Ashoka, since even though there are teams where like proper teams have been formed with trials and inductions happening for over a month, like proper rigorous trials, but even though there are teams, still anyone can play any sport. Like you can go and just like sports block is open 24/7. You can go and play. It's not like if you're not in a team, you can't play. Like the teams only have like 1.5 hour practice every day. So like apart from that, it's totally free for everyone. And like the sports ministry does an excellent job. And like you'll see them in your emails. Like they'll keep telling you that the sports block is open. This is happening. This event of sports. Like just go try it out. Even like just try it out. So that way, it's a very good culture, I feel. And for the tournaments that right now that team that Ashoka play, mainly like for football, we have Agnihotri, which is a held by Ashoka. So it happens in Ashoka. Then we go to the tournament held by Delhi University, and like a lot more sports actually play the same tournament. So like it happens that football, basketball, cricket team go for the same tournament together. So it's a good fun even there. But yeah, so it's a good culture, and like everyone should try at least one sport. Like again, there's no pressure because you can just come and try. Like so many people try, so it's good fun at the end of the day.
I completely feel your last statement of trying. So when I joined at Ashoka, I had zero interest in sports. But back then we used to have a marathon that every fresher had to run. And I eventually ended up taking Zumba for fun. So I totally feel you there. Now, circling back to Kashvi, are there any competitions or inter-university events that clubs and societies take part in? Or what kind of campus events do these clubs and societies organize?
Right. Indeed, actually, Ashoka has been actively taking part in many, inter-university events and also international competitions. And this has been there from the time of its inception, actually. So, and even during the online semester, we have taken part in online competitions and, brought laurels for the university. So, very recently, it was an online competition, and the dance society represented the college, and it was we actually bagged a lot of prizes. So we stood first in the classical dance competition, and we stood second in the semi-classical dance competition. So it's been there even in the online semester. And to answer the second part of the question, the clubs get ample opportunities to showcase their talents through annual traditions created by the office itself. So one of them is Jazba, which is essentially a platform for clubs and societies to give a sneak peek into what they actually do. And we also have the annual production fortnight, which is actually the year-end mega gala event that we have, where all the clubs and societies bring forth their creative work and their years' hard work and passion that they've cultivated. And then we also have a lot of clubs fairs where, incoming students actually get to know about the functionalities of each club, how they work, their induction processes. So that is something, every incoming student should keep an eye out for. And also we do a lot of external collaborations. So again, talking about the recent collaboration as a dance society we did was we invited the Bharatnatyam maestra Srimati Rama Vaidyanathan for a master class, and we had over 100 attendees. So, that is the kind of because we feel that such sort of things just help keep the spirits of not only the members but the student body, like the spirits really high. And we're also expecting very interesting collabs, which I cannot talk about right now, but we have a lot of interesting things planned even for the incoming batches. And that's how we usually, these are the kind of things we usually do.
I like how you're trying to keep up with the surprise. That's really nice of you, Kashvi. So coming to Karthik, how do different academic societies work together then? Are there any events or collaborations that you guys have? And also, how much autonomy do these student-run initiatives get on campus with respect to the academic societies? If you could let us know that, Karthik, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'll answer the second question first. There is complete autonomy in terms of what kinds of events that need to be done. There is so academic societies come under the purview of Ministry of Academic Affairs, and there are certain sort of regulations that academic societies must meet. For example, we need to turn in a final report of what all events happened over the year. We have to organize a certain number of events to keep receiving our funds for the year regularly. But apart from those regulations, it's all completely student run, except in the cases where students themselves want some sort of feedback and some sort of help from the professors. For example, during my tenure as the secretary, during the summers, we organized this thing where we just approached a lot of different professors who would be willing to take research project students, and then we reached out to the students who were willing to work on these things. So we facilitated these small research groups who worked on many projects over the summer. We also had events like internship diaries where seniors who've done internships in different places would just come talk about the places that they've been to, how to apply, how to optimize your chances of getting in. Similarly, we also had a grad school diaries program where the physics majors who've gotten into grad school would talk about their experience studying. So there is complete autonomy, except in those cases where the students themselves want some sort of help from the faculty or the department, and in those cases, the department is quite generous when it comes to helping the students. The second thing about collaborations between academic societies, that in fact is it's a very common occurrence at Ashoka, especially between so we have women in computer science. We also have another academic society, the CS Society. So they organize events regularly together. Physics, I remember in earlier there was this Arduino workshop for physicists in which there were a lot of CS people involved. But apart from apart from these domains which are anyway next to each other, there are also rather sparse collaborations. For example, astronomy club at Ashoka, which comes under the purview of Physics Society itself, organized an astronomy art competition in which we received a lot of really nice digital art from people. So there is a lot of scope of doing things together. A lot of people work on computational biology at Ashoka. So the bio society and the physics society sometimes work together. So yeah, when it comes to things like complexity science, things like game theory, in which both math people, econ people, and physics people are interested in. So there are all these events. In physics speaker series, there are often a lot of people who have nothing to do with physics, who are just interested in the things being talked about. So yeah.
Good to hear about these collaborations, because I feel they speak volume of the multidisciplinary approach that we're taking at Ashoka. Now that we've spoken so much about events, Nitya, I'd like to ask you, what are the sort of events that RAs have been organizing in the dorms? If you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the ARA program, the team is really excited about organizing events at not only a scale for your individual floor, but also for the entire college. So there are sort of three tiers of events that are organized by the team. Firstly, RAs hold a cyclic active event and passive event. So one cycle is around 1.5 months. And every 1.5 months, the RA will hold an active event for the floor, which can be anything from painting together to cooking. And residents are allowed to suggest things as well. So that's a really great opportunity to frequently connect with your floor mates. So you have that on a bi-monthly basis, roughly. Secondly, we have CCCs and CAMs, which are candid coffee conversations and coffee and more. And these are events that happen on a bi-monthly basis as well. And they're open to any students that are interested. We usually have a guest speaker that might be a professor or somebody from the ACWB. Or from, could be an alumni that talks just about residence life. So one of our last CCCs that saw heavy footfall was with Professor Tadi, and he was talking about hustle culture at Ashoka. And we had, 40 plus students come, and we were all sitting with bean bags, and it was a really, really lovely evening. So those are sort of mid-tier events that are open to anybody. And then we have mega events, things like the Great Ashokan Weekend and Dorm Olympics, which just finished. So those are 2 to 3 days long, sometimes spanning an entire weekend. And there's weeks and weeks of preparation that lead up to that. And those are full-fledged, large-scale events that, multiple different societies participate in. Students can participate in games, competitions, all that fun stuff. So yeah, there's a range of events that the AURA team handles, and it covers everything from smaller floor, more intimate events to larger scale things that happen twice or thrice a year.
Well, Nitya, you've surely gotten me nostalgic thinking about all those dorm events we used to have. Okay, coming to you, Aryan. So you spoke of the typical for college fest that you have, Agnipath, and then participating in inter-college events. But there is something very interesting that happens on campus wherein players are auctioned off. So can you tell us about this creative event that takes place on campus?
Right, yeah. So this auction off thing, yeah, it sounds a lot of fun, which it is. So in Ashoka, even this is the first time even I experienced this, was that right now there are only 3 sports wherein this happens. It's football, basketball, and cricket. So there are 3 competitions that happen in Ashoka: ABA, which is the Ashokan Basketball Association, and it's APL, Ashoka Premier League for football, and there's the ACSS, Ashoka Cricket Super Sixes. So these 3 competitions happen in Ashoka, wherein you to play in that you have to register, pay a certain amount, like $100, not much, to register, and then an auction takes place wherein each player is divided into a tier list, wherein if you're in the college team, you're in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and so on. And then you have a base price, and then an full-fledged auction happens. Like the first time, as I said, I experienced it, and it was like proper, like there's a auctioneer with a paddle and all, and it's quite fun. It's great fun with like seeing your friends get auctioned off for how much will they go for and all. So, and those events are a lot of fun to play, because I remember when we were playing, like even to watch, because like ABA, like there are like 5 people on the court, but around the court there were like maybe like 100. Like there were so many people around there watching. So like that, it's damn fun. And so those auction events happen, and they just got over. ACS got over like last to last week or something, and like they were continuous 3 weeks, so like it was very stressful, but yet a lot of fun to engage in. And like, again, if you're like, it's not that whoever plays the sport only they register. Like so many people who like don't play regularly, but like are interested in like they play sometimes, have also registered, and they also played and they had fun. It's not like a high class like you have to be like a pro to play it. So it's open for all, and it's a lot more fun than it sounds. Sounds fun anyway, but like I would recommend everyone to play one sport at least.
Thank you. Thank you for that suggestion, Aryan. So I might have a follow-up. Sorry?
If I may add something to Aryan's
Yeah,
response.
sure, Karthik.
In
Go
fact,
ahead.
this sort of one unheard of thing also happened this semester, wherein a lot of physics professors pooled in the money to buy a team. So the physics professor sponsored a football team. Not only the buying of the players and everything, but also all their refreshments, their energy drinks and everything. And they just had like a physics football team. So yeah. So there's an active participation from faculty members as well in a lot of these things happening at Ashoka.
In fact, I also had a follow-up question for you based on this, Aryan. As an alum and as a staff member, can I buy a team at these events?
Yeah, as far as I know, I think you can buy a team. So yeah, anyone can buy a team. Just yeah, there's no restrictions on that.
I think you will be seeing me next season for these events. Uh, all right. So we've spoken a lot about recreational time, a lot of collaboration, inter-university events, international events. But I think we all agree that academic rigor at Ashoka is quite high. So this is a question for all of you. How do you manage your schedule around that? And anyone can start here. Nitya, are you trying to unmute? Yeah.
I was going to raise my hand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I know Kashvi is in the same major as I am, which is ecofin, and I know physics and all is also equally rigorous. So there's definitely sometimes a clash in handling everything, and it can get a lot. But I think the trick is one, practice. I think you get used to managing your time well. But also being really mindful about what you're spending your time on and intentionally blocking out certain hours for specific activities or roles that you find important or you think you should be allocating time to. So yeah, I think the two sides of that answer is one, I think you should make an effort to be more mindful of where you're spending your time and making sure that that's going towards things that are really fulfilling. And two, I think that mindfulness gets more sharpened and you become more intentional about it with practice. And like the first year can be a little bit tricky figuring that out, but after that, I think it gets easier.
Anyone else? Yeah, Kashvi, you raise your hand.
Right. So one pattern that I've noticed, even being a part of the core team and also a member in the initial few years, firstly, a really good approach to this would be having an open conversation with the core members or the leadership of the society or the club you're in, and be very transparent about the clashes with your class timings or the academic pressures you're facing. And that open conversation really helps you streamline a lot of stuff, and also helps you in time management, because essentially the seniors have already gone through it, and having a conversation with them and telling them that even with academic pressure, they'll be like, okay, this is how you can go about it. And this is one suggestion I've given to my juniors, was that usually our major classes are happen till 6 to 6:30. Post that, we do have some time on hand, if provided we don't have discussion sessions, and that's when as a club or society we come together and schedule practices or rehearsals. And yes, it does get hectic because you're actually essentially there for you're attending classes till 6 p.m. and we plan to have rehearsals, practices post 7 p.m. So two things, again, have an open conversation with the leadership or the members in your teams, and also allocate your time in such a way that you take breaks and fix your, like maybe your rehearsals, your practices in the later half of the day.
Thank you for that, Kashvi. Moving on to Karthik.
Yeah, so building on Kashvi's answer, so first, transitioning to living on your own on campus is a fairly radical change in your lifestyle, because it's not just that you have to worry about your academics and your club related work, but also, oh, I have to do my laundry, oh, I have to wash my dishes, oh, I have to cook food sometimes. But one thing I've realized is that you can set up the machinery to sort of automate a lot of these things so that there's less resistance, so that you don't have to think about it. You can things like setting up a fairly elaborate Google Calendar, having a Trello board, having a fairly elaborate Notion board. So building that sort of ecosystem definitely helped me in my first year. And the good thing is that you don't really have to reinvent the wheel from scratch. So as Kashvi said, that if you just talk to your seniors, there are a lot of these tools that you can sort of just just adopt. So that is one thing. You can set up the machinery to make your lives easier if ever you feel like things are going out of hand. And the second thing is that inevitably there are going to be days when things just come crashing down on you. For example, you have a big club event planned, and but your assignments are also due then, and you have a quiz and whatnot. And it's inevitable considering how many things that people generally are involved in at Ashoka. One thing which helps me is just reminding myself that okay, it's just a rough week. It's not like my life is falling apart, and soon after the weekend things are going to be more chill. Or yeah, just reminding myself that it's okay. It's just a rough couple of days. And second, just reminding myself that why I'm doing this in the first place. So as long as you're enjoying it, so there are moments when you're doing things that you're enjoying and still you're exerted by them. For me, that's one of those things is just boxing and working out regularly. Like those are things which I really enjoy, and they're a big part of my life at Ashoka. But there are still days when I feel like, oh, let me just skip it. But if you can just remind yourself that why you're doing it in the first place, the fun that you get out of it, the joy that lies in there, it's not a burden if it's recreation to you. And you can sort of tune your brain to think of the biggest of burdens as recreation. I can also think about doing my assignments as, oh, this is going to be fun, this is an interesting problem. So yeah, a change in mindset also helps.
Those were some wise words, Karthik. I mean, we all can learn something from that. Not just in context of college, but in context of their work life or even high school life. So now we'll be starting up with audience question, and the first question is on academics, and it's open to all of you. In fact, I'd also like to pitch in here if I get time. So the first question is, what advice would you give to someone who is not sure of what they want to do in their future as a major? Would anyone like to go first? All right. Nitya, are you trying to unmute?
I was just going to raise my hand as well.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I think that's a really great question, because honestly, at like 16, there's only so much you know about what you know. So I think a couple things you can do preemptively before you get to Ashoka, or before you get to college, is just get your hands dirty in whatever you find interesting, both within the space of schoolwork, but also outside of that. And I think that's something that Ashoka really presses as well. Like if for example, like Karthik, if physics is something that really interests you, try and go beyond the textbook work that's covered in school and ask questions outside of the school space and try and hone your interest in that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be academic either. It can be sort of any interest. I think consistency is the key to figuring out what resonates with you and what doesn't. If not consistency in a specific discipline, at least consistency in the pursuit of trying different things until something clicks. So that's one thing that I think you can do. Just read, ask questions, and evaluate the horizon as much as you can, and be curious. But I think the other thing in favor of Ashoka is that I feel like we're given a lot of space to just not know once we're here. You don't have to declare your major until your second year, your third year. So you can really just come here, take all kinds of really interesting foundation courses with really, really wonderful professors, and look at, if not what subject interests you, what kinds of thinking interests you. Is it structured in a more academic way, or like what is really resonating with you? There are a lot of resources and infrastructure in place to allow you to find that out within, like, at your own pace. So I know plenty of people who were with me in the intro to econ course in our first year, and now they're graduating with completely different majors. And I thought I was going to do psychology as part of my minor, but I don't think I'm going to be continuing with that. I might be switching to Ontra or CS. So I, just to sum up, I think that there are some things that you can do to widen what your scope of, like, what you think you're interested in before you get to Ashoka. But even if you haven't figured it out completely, that's okay. And I think Ashoka is very encouraging of that pursuit once you get here as well. So just take really, really interesting courses and see what clicks.
I think Nitya has covered all the important points here. In fact, she's already covered what I was going to say. Karthik, would you like to add?
Yeah, just two small things. One thing good about Ashoka is that there can be different levels of commitment to a certain domain. So, for example, I'm interested in neuroscience, but I'm not as interested in neuroscience so as to actually do all the assignments, write papers, and everything on it. So you can either take a course for credit, or you can just audit the course, or if you want, you can also just sit in the course, wherein you're just sitting in the lecture. So I used to do it a lot in my first year. I would just sit in political science lectures, I would just sit in history lectures, just to see what's going on. And the other small thing is, you would have to do foundation courses, which cover a lot of grounds, from economics to political science to mathematical thinking and all these things, computer science. Just do them with an open mind. Some people think of FCs as a burden, and I really have a strong disdain towards that approach. You should think of your foundation courses as an opportunity to step foot in things which you might not get an opportunity to ever again, actually. So you have some of the best instructors in the world teaching you these courses, and if you just have an open mind, I'm pretty sure after you're done with your FCs, you'd have a lot of things that you're very interested in. And the good thing about Ashoka is that you can do all of those things together if you want. So you can take all those courses.
Thank you for that addition, Karthik. Thank you for telling our audience that they also have the option of taking up a minor, doing an audit, or just sitting in the class. I'm sure no professor would ever not allow you to sit in a class. Okay, moving on to another question. Very, very interesting one. How is the mess food? I think all of us can answer this question, but let's start with Aryan. I haven't heard from Aryan in some time. How is the mess food, Aryan?
Yeah, mess food is good sometimes. I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, speaking genuinely though, it's good. Like 1 or 2 days, they're off days, but sometimes the food is not that great. But at that moment, you have other outlets like Dhaba or TKS or Chicago Pizza, so there's Subway and all this Rasananda. But most of the times, I feel like best food is up to the par, and there's a lot of variety. Like, so if you're non-veg or veg, like if there's chicken, you don't need to like. If you're veg and if there's chicken, there'll also be paneer for you if you're veg. So there's it's not like you won't get food or anything like that. And the food, I feel like it's up to the par. It's not that bad. I mean, it has bad days, but again, it's any mess at any cottage, so I wouldn't blame them.
I understand. Well, mess food taste is something that is very, very subjective. And when I was on campus, my favorite meal of the day was the breakfast, because those watermelons. I used to love the mess breakfast. Moving on, here's a residence life question. Are the students allotted an individual room, or do they have a roommate? So I think I can take this question up. Every room at Ashoka is on double occupancy. That means you are allotted one roommate. I think we can see Karthik's roommate behind him. And there's also this thing about roommate allotment that happens in your first year. In your first year, you're allotted a roommate who is geographically or culturally very different from you. So we do this to promote cultural sensitivity on campus. And the next question is, do first year students get hostel accommodation? Yes, everybody gets hostel accommodation. As we've already mentioned, Ashoka is a residential university. And here's a question on sports. Do we have a tennis court at Ashoka? Aryan, would you like to take that?
Yeah. So we do have a tennis court at Ashoka, and I played only once. I mean, I don't play tennis but much, but I have friends who play, and like I asked them once, like, how's the quality of the court, and they were damn satisfied. They were like, it's actually like very well built. The material of the court, the nets, and like the number of tennis balls you can get, and like rackets, it's actually up to the mark, and it's quite good. So, and we only have one though, so like you have to wait in line, but there's not much crowd. Like it's everyone comes in different times, so you will always get time to play if you ever want to.
All right. So here's a question for clubs and societies, or it can also come under co-curriculars. How is the music in Ashoka? Are there any teachers for musical or dance clubs? Anyone would like to take that?
I could actually take that. So actually, the music society at Ashoka is called Vistar, and it's one of the most wonderful societies. And simply because it creates a very inclusive, collaborative, and accessible community for community for musicians, and it's not subject to, again, if you've taken some professional training, you can actually come, and there are these jam sessions that the Vistar society has, where people who really enjoy singing but have never taken it professionally, they can come and jam with the team and have a good time. And also, as far as I know, the society is divided into two parts, which is essentially the Indian classical music bit and the Western musics, and under those there are multiple subdivisions. So there's the Western a cappella, there's the Western choir, and even in the Indian classical music part there are multiple subcategories. And also, again, just like the other performing arts societies, they go for a lot of competitions, and compete with lot of like they go for a lot of competitions, and they've even traveled to different cities, different colleges for competitions. And to answer the second question, if we have any teacher coming to teach, so it's a very so essentially we also have a faculty advisor to whom we can go for logistical requirements, and also in terms of if we want to better our technique or come up with ideas or just simply brainstorm ideas, we have somebody we can reach out to, and essentially they are faculty members. And additionally, the university is also open for us to invite some teachers or specialists in different, say, art forms. It could be some folk dances or classical dances or Kathak dancers, and we can invite them. So the time when we were appearing for a competition and we were doing this specific dance, this folk dance called Chow, we had a professional Chow dancer come and teach us and prepare us for the competition. So we have all these opportunities, and it's just that it's a matter of coming up with these ideas, coming up with someone who can actually take up these classes if it's feasible for them to travel to Sonipat. And we just have to they're always open to such kind of ideas, basically.
Thank you for that, Kashvi. So we have a question directly for Nitya here. It's asking, could you shed some more light on applying for the RA position? Who is eligible? And around what time of the year does the training take place? So could you elaborate on that, Nitya?
Yeah, absolutely. So eligibility, so we just rolled out the applications for the next cohort of RAs, and eligibility is anybody that's a second year and above. And the reason why that criteria is set is because they want to ensure that you've had at least 1 year to get into the rhythm of living at Ashoka. So it's not a first year telling a first year or helping another first year transition. So apart that's like your baseline criteria. Then obviously they look for people without any infractions or anything so far in student life. So that's your baseline for the criterion. After that, the application process will be open, until for another month or so, I think the next couple of weeks. And then after that, they evaluate all of the applications and then get back to you with with an interview request sometimes. No, actually, everyone gets an interview. So they get back to you with an interview around the June time, and in July, August, towards right before the academic year begins, there is the 2-week training, and that's mandatory. All RAs have to attend, and they also have to be involved. And depending on how receptive you are in the training and how how they assess you and gauge you as a potential RA, you get a contract after that you sign. It's all of the terms and conditions are very clear, and then you can begin your term as an RA. So my contract actually ends today, which is May 6th. And it started on around, I think it was August 15th or so. So it spans a full academic year.
Well, congratulations on the completion of your contract, Nitya. Very, very nice to hear that. So here's another question. After the first semester, what opportunities are students given during the summer break for internship or anything else? So I'd like to take this one because when I was a student, I was also part of the career development office, wherein I worked closely with the internship cell. So let me just brief you on what internship cell does. Internship cell helps students get internship after their after the second semester ends. And every year there's an internship fair as well, wherein a number of companies visit campus and you can apply for those internships based on your interest, based on how you'd like to build your resume, how you'd like to build your CV for your full-time placement, which is going to happen towards the end of your third year. So after first year is over, we have our summertime, which is slightly longer than the usual summertime that Indian universities have. We have a summer of approximately 3 months. So students go for internships. We've had internships from big names like Hindustan Unilever, HSBC, Adobe, and so on. You can choose to intern with a startup. You can choose to intern with centers on campus. There are various opportunities for you to go ahead with your internship. Apart from internships, there are other things that you can do. You can do a summer semester. Now that summer semester can be on campus, can be an Ashoka summer semester, or with the help of GESP, which is an office on campus, you can go for summer abroad. Now, we can talk about that in a bit. Let's take a few more questions for the students here. All right, so here's a question, and I'll just quote it. I'm heavily introverted. Will I survive? Are there others like me at Ashoka? Okay, and there's a follow-up. I have faced a lot of challenges with learning, recently diagnosed with ADHD. I have learned it is hard to survive in most college environments in India. What about Ashoka? Will I be able to keep up with the course? Would anyone like to take that? I think they can start off with the quote, introverted and on campus. How does that work for students? Would anyone like to?
Can I give that a shot?
Sure.
I don't know if I was an introvert when I got to Ashoka, but I've definitely sort of shrunk back as I've gone through the years. But I also know many, many people at Ashoka who are, prefer to keep smaller groups, are not extroverts by any means. So I think there are absolutely plenty of circles that you can interact with, not just in terms of other like-minded individuals, but also Ashoka gives you the opportunity to sort of have complete freedom over your degree of involvement with different clubs and societies and things like that. And then at the end of the day, your space within your room is also very, you can choose your roommate after your first year. So I definitely think introverts will survive and not just survive, people with all different kinds of personalities will thrive at Ashoka. It's just about finding the right environment, and that might just take a little while to figure out. So yeah, and as far as the second part of the question goes, the Office of Learning Support is a really, really wonderful resource. I've gone to them myself with some issues and queries, so you can really approach them with anything, and they have trained advisors that can help you with your coursework and specific learning techniques and things like that. So I have great things to say about them. But also, I think the student body in itself is very diverse. There is a lot of neurotypical and neurodivergent students as well. So it's my hunch that there are a lot of spaces that are built specifically in order to help students with a range of ability to really integrate themselves into the academic and residence life space.
Thank you so much for that, Nitya. Now, another question is BBA worth doing from Ashoka? So for the audience member who asked this question, let me tell you, Ashoka does not offer a BBA. Ashoka only offers courses in BA and BSc honors. The closest option you have is a minor in entrepreneurship or a major in computer science and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship minor comes under a center which is at Ashoka, Center of a CFE basically, and they offer courses, they offer research talks, they offer internships, and in fact they come up with new courses every semester. In the next semester you will have courses that will help you with the startup maybe that you're planning, or how to build on your communication skills if you're going to pitch your startup to somebody, how to be a good leader. You have authors from the field of entrepreneurship coming to your classes. You can learn through a CEO who's delivering a talk in your class, and so on. Would any econ or entrepreneur student like to contribute here? Anyone? I think Nitya wants to answer.
Yeah, for sure. I had so I'm an eco-fin major, but I had, there was a fin and entrepreneurship cross-listed course, Fundamentals of Investing, that took place this semester. And it was honestly, I don't know, like from my memory, it's the best course I've ever taken at Ashoka so far. And they brought in a range of guest professors from private equity and financial management and things like that. So I think those departments make an active effort to not just include people from the traditional academia spaces of those disciplines, but also really like corporate and things like that. So I had a really wonderful experience with that.
That's good to know. And apologies for the hiccup earlier. I meant Center for Entrepreneurship. Moving on, there's a question that all of us can take here. Let me just, yeah. What does Ashoka look for in a student? Can you all please share your interview experiences? So it's open to all. I don't think my answer is very updated since I appeared for my interview in 2017. So let's start with Karthik.
Yeah, even I think my answer might be a little outdated because ours was also fairly. But I remember my interview distinctly because it was one of the nicest, most stimulating conversations I've had. So the interview isn't very technical. They just want to know how you are as a person, and they want to know your interests, and they want to know what have you done in the past to cultivate those interests. So I remember during my interview, we talked a lot about music, and we talked a lot about computer science. Even though, so I have background in music. I've been playing the guitar for 7 years. I'm a trained tabla player, but I don't think I have much to do with computer science. But yeah, there was a very interesting overlap on the physics of music and the physics of music instruments, and how certain kinds of chords and how certain kinds of scales can induce certain kinds of emotions in people. And yeah, it didn't feel like an interview in the sense that there were people who were judging me by the quality of my thought. They just wanted to know how my brain works, how my general thought process, how well I can articulate my ideas, how well I can manage them in my head. And coming to the general question of what Ashoka looks for in students, I would say that the perhaps the biggest factor in you getting in Ashoka would be that you must have a willingness to learn about things which you haven't learned before, as well as a demonstrated interest in one particular niche in which you have excelled at. So a sort of breadth as well as depth in your knowledge. So having a wide scope of the things that you're capable of understanding, as well as one or two things that you've excelled at in the past. For me, those things were physics, obviously, and philosophy. Those were the things that I had invested a lot of time into. But the good thing is that it doesn't matter if you haven't excelled in the past, as long as you can demonstrate that you have the capacity to excel in them in the future. So the one thing that I would say to a lot of people who are applying to Ashoka is that the admission committee isn't there to reject you. The admission committee is there to admit you into Ashoka. So they're not looking for things on the basis of which they can say, oh, this person isn't a good fit. They're basically looking for things to build a case for you. So yeah.
Thank you for articulating that answer so well, Karthik. So here's a general question. My daughter is completing class 12th in 2023, which is next year. What should be the right time for her to register at Ashoka and start following the admission activities? Well, to you, sir or madam, I'd say that you should start checking out the admission activities around the month of October this year, because our admissions happen in rounds. There are 4 rounds. The first round opens in October and so on. So you can start following up with the dates in October 2022, sorry. And with that, I think we can conclude our webinar for the day. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that this webinar was helpful in knowing more about student life at Ashoka. We would really appreciate it if you could please take a minute to share your valuable feedback with us. The link to the feedback form is provided in the chat box. Please note that the recording of this session will be available on Ashoka's YouTube channel in case you would like to share it with your friends. Our next webinar is on Ashoka University, the undergraduate program and careers, which is scheduled for Saturday, 14th May 2022 at 11 a.m. In this webinar, Ishwara Venkatesham, Pro Vice Chancellor, Ashoka University, Priyanka Chandu, Assistant Vice President, Career Development Office, Ashoka University, and Vikram Bawa, Senior Director, Department of Outreach, will highlight our journey so far, key milestones and accomplishments, and our vision going forward. The registration link for this is provided in the chat box. Before we wrap up today, I would like to remind our audience that the final round of admissions to Ashoka's undergraduate program are open. You do not have to wait for your 12th board's exam marks or CUCET to apply, and you can get a confirmed offer of admission and financial aid without your 12th board's marks. If you have any questions or queries regarding various aspects of the university, feel free to write to us at ugapply@ashoka.edu.in or call on the number shown on your screen. Once again, I thank our speakers for taking out the time to participate in this discussion. This brings us to the end of the session. Please take care and stay safe.